My name is Dr. Rajaram. I have been in the US for about 52 years, and last few years of my career, of totally spanning 44 years, I have been focusing on climate change and what it is doing to the planet and to humans, animals, and plants. So I feel that this is something fundamentally should be known by, I called it for engineers, but for all professionals who want to make an impact on society. Because we as professionals in any field get to that level because we want to have an impact on society, not just for making money and having a good living. That just comes along. But the main thing we are all passionate about, that we are happy to get up in the morning and do the best we can every day, is to make an impact on our community and our society. And climate change has been called an existential threat. Means it threatens our existence the way we are living right now. And nobody would want to go back in the standard of living to a couple of generations ago. We want to always improve and maintain the quality of life. So to do that, we have to understand climate change and take the steps necessary to make sure that it is not causing disasters in our communities, both in property damage and in loss of human life, animal life, plant life. So with that, I will give you what my book is all about. And this is been written with a lot of thought about how the reader or the person attending this can benefit from it and directly use it in their career. The book you see on the right here is available from Notion Press in Chennai, and you can easily get to that. I'm going to cover this in 10 modules. Today I'm going to do only module 1, but I want to give you an overview. The module 1, which I'm covering today, will cover why does climate change occur? How do we know climate change has been accelerating since the 1960s? What has been done to manage climate change since the 1990s? What is the Paris Agreement to mitigate climate change? How does the agreement work internationally? How much is the extent of property loss and death in vulnerable communities around the world? What is India doing to mitigate climate change and meet the goals under the Paris Agreement? And with every class, I will have an assignment for you to think for yourself and come up with an independent report of anywhere from 5 to 8 pages, which will reflect your own thinking based on what you've understood and what your life experiences are. Next slide I'm going to cover will be on natural resources: air, water, forest, minerals, land resources, and food. This is something we all depend on for our daily lives. So these are natural resources, how do we protect them in the era of climate change? How is clean air in our cities affected by climate change? How are water resources affected? How are the forest resources affected? How do the mineral resource extraction affect climate change? And how is food production and distribution affected by climate change? These are fundamental things any professional should know so that they can mark the trajectory of their career in such a way that they are working on these issues and helping society, first locally in their community, in the country, and internationally. And next one I will cover is energy, which is very important for our quality of life. And we should know how we produce the energy that we're using right now and what has been the historical shift from the 20th century to the 21st century. And how does the energy derived from fossil fuels, coal, oil, and gas impact climate change? What is the share of energy produced in India from nuclear energy? How about other countries? Renewable energy, and what is the progress of implementing new programs in India? How is innovation affecting the energy use in India? And will be followed by an assignment. And we as professionals in our own area, we don't look at the overall picture of what this planet gives us And that is why we have to understand ecosystems and the biodiversity that we have, that God has blessed us with. And if we don't make efforts to maintain it, we will lose in the end, and future generations will be the big losers. So we have to understand ecosystems, how they can be used in mitigating climate change. What types of ecosystems does India have? What is the influence of humans on ecosystem protection? What is biodiversity and why is it important in managing climate change? What is the extent of biodiversity in India and how is it affected by human population growth? And what is this National Biodiversity Protection Act? What is it? And an assignment after that. Natural hazards and disaster management. This is getting a lot of attention since the tsunami happened in 2004. India was not well prepared and many people lost their lives, property, many animals, plants were all impacted by the tsunami. Since then, there's a lot of advances in disaster management in India. So we have to understand how this flood and drought cycles being affected by climate change in various parts of India. How do earthquakes happen? And what are the earthquake zones in India? What are cyclones and what are cyclone-prone areas in India? What are landslides and how do they happen? What are wildfires and how do they affect the forest resources in India and around the world? How are disasters managed in India? Module 6 being what environmental crisis we are facing right now and how we can respond to it. What are the various environmental crises in India and how are they exacerbated by climate change? Air pollution, water pollution, land pollution. What is the social response to managing these environmental crises? How do we as a society respond to all these things that are happening? And what can individual citizens do to prevent environmental crisis? This is very important because we all can't say the government is taking care of this, the government is doing that. We as individual citizens have a role, have a duty to play in maintaining our environment and preventing these environmental crises. Then I will talk with the module about environmental and habitat conservation. Without that, climate change will really impact us very badly. So environmental protection is an important aspect written in our Indian Constitution. And it requires protection and improvement of the environment and safeguarding the forests and wildlife. There are several laws, and I'll mention all these things and how they're enforced at the state and central government levels. The role of courts in environmental and habitat conservation. What are courts or Supreme Court, local courts doing for maintaining our environmental and habitat? What is the role of non-governmental organizations such as Holtec and civil society organizations? There are so many associations in Bangalore and other parts of the country. What are they doing to manage these environmental crises? Module 8, and talk about environmental approaches to climate change. How is the Paris Agreement being implemented in the central and state governments? Role of energy efficiency, renewable energy in the Indian economy. How is artificial intelligence being used to manage and make improvements in environmental management? Policies and their implementation at the state and government, central and state government levels. Role of technological innovation and resource conservation. This is very important because this is where you'll get lots and lots of ideas as how you can use your skills to improve society and innovate. Innovation is all in our heads. If we think there's a problem in society and if we attack it, we can solve it. And as they say, necessity is the mother of invention. We have to see the need first that all this is creating so much damage in our communities, especially the poor, and how we can do better with innovation. Then I will talk about Indian and international case studies because these things tell us what has happened in the past and how they have handled it and what we can learn from that and do better. So there are many examples of good and bad environmental stewardship in India and the rest of the world. I will highlight these. One, I'll talk about the Chipko movement in Uttarakhand, started by women in the 1970s. It caught on in 1970 and has been there ever since. Fukushima, Japan, nuclear disaster in 2014 11, it's a huge impact it made and what that did to the nuclear industry. Oil spills and their management, with all the oil that's moving around the world. How can disaster management in India be improved? What are the lessons learned from the tsunami? And we have an assignment. And how can the future be better? This is something we all have to think about on a regular basis and do something about it, act on it. There are many countries and many intelligent minds working on this, how to manage natural resource energy production during this era of climate change. How can engineers be involved? How can other professionals be involved in this international effort? There are so many opportunities internationally and within India. How do we take advantage of those and make an impact? And then policy issues are important, economic issues affecting, being affected by climate change, technology issues, social issues. So all these I'll cover. So this course on climate change and environment will give you a broad overview of what is happening with climate change in India, around the world, and how you as an individual professional can make an impact. And by doing that, create opportunities for yourself and have a good life for you and your family and your community. So that is what emphasis in this whole program is going to be. And what you get out of this is what you reflect on, what I say. And in the book, you can get it from Notion Press, read it, reflect on it. And at the end of each chapter in my book, I have lots and lots of ideas for thinking out new on how we can do it and how we can observe what's happening around us and be cognizant and take action. So the book will be a valuable supplement to all the classes you hear, because there's so much reading material and innovative things or things to really spark ideas in your mind. So that will help you a lot.